This conference will now be recorded.
Um, so today we're talking about community of practice specifically for advocacy. Now, advocacy takes on more than one role, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Advocating for for the system, for services to the people we serve, advocating for your facility and the programs that you offer and how to do that. So we're both going to talk about both advocacy in two different ways and its importance to you and to the people that you serve. Uh, Before we get to that, I want to start off by first going over some of the ground rules. Okay, these courses that we provide have been agreed to with the Kern Regional Center for continuing education credit. So if you're taking this class today, you can get 1 unit of credit, which would be good towards your evaluations by both Kern Regional Center and Community Care licensing. Um, in order to get those continuing education classes, you must attend the entire webinar, Community of Practice, or the CQL training to obtain the credit. Now, just recently, there was some um, we weren't quite sure whether the units that people received through uh, CQL, the Council on Quality Leadership, would be eligible for continuing education credits. We worked with the Kern Regional Center, and they are now eligible for continuing education credits. So if you've taken any of the CQL classes, and I'm going to show you what's coming up in a moment here, you can get the 4 hours of credit for each class that you take through them. So that's also, I think, a really good way to get the credits that you need for your continuing education. You must identify yourself at the beginning of the presentation on the screen or in the chat. Um, if there are more than one person on the screen or telephone call, each person wanting credit must be identified. And I see Bernice and Vanessa, you've done that this morning. So if there's anyone else who has someone else watching this as well, you need to identify that person so that we know, so that when it comes time to provide the credits, we can make sure we get the credits done correctly. We want to work very carefully with Kern Regional Center to make sure that the credits that we're giving are have been earned. Um, an email must be sent to Irene at the Bakersfield Association, the ARC, which identifies in writing three concepts that you learned from the presentation. Can be just bullet points, can be a paragraph, but we want something that shows that you were on this whole call, because many of you have your screens off, and so we don't know if you're actually sitting there and watching it or what. So we want to make sure that you are indeed participating in this webinar, and so we ask that you send something to Irene, so that we can uh, validate that you really obtained some information from this morning's presentation. And then finally, we respectfully request that you ask that for credits within 30 days of your taking this class. It makes it so much easier for administratively for us to be able to um, get everything taken care of. So we do ask that. Now, many of you know that as part of the grant that was given to the Bakersfield ARC this year, uh, their Bakersfield ARC subcontracted with the CQL, which again is a Council on Quality Leadership. CQL is a national organization which is considered to be the number one organization for accreditation of programs for developmental disabilities. They also do behavioral health slash mental health facilities and and programs, and so they offer a wide array of courses. Now, if you were to go online and go to their website and take a class, they are $100 a class. Or if you want to take the POM, which is a 5-day training, that's $800. Through these webinars, you get it for free because of your uh, affiliation with this grant and the Kern Regional Center. So we do really encourage you to take advantage of these. Now, coming up later this month and again in July is Exploring Communications, and that will be on the 28th. All of these are from 9 to 1, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And usually they're on Thursdays, but there are a couple that are on other days as well. Um, April 18th and July 9th, the three E's, the Foundation of Informed Choice. And I always get this wrong. So could you share it with me again, Valerie?
The experience, education, and wow, I forgot the last one today. Jeff, that's on you.
Uh, Anyways, it's all about sharing with your the people that you serve uh, how to make informed choices so that they really fully understand the nature, the consequences, the benefits, the potential risks of any choice that they decide to make. So we really want to encourage that one. That's a good class. I've taken that one.
I got
And
the last one, Jeff. Exposure. I remembered
okay,
after.
okay. So what were those three again, Valerie?
So it's on experience, education, and exposure.
So we want clients to have an experience to see things. Many of the people we work with have had a very limited repertoire within their lives in terms of seeing different opportunities. So one of the things when I was still at Bakersfield ARC, and we really tried to start working towards a person-centered approach where individuals made choices about their own lives, about what they do and where they go, when we'd ask people in our community-based day program, where in the community would you like to go? What we oftentimes heard was Valley Plaza, Dollar Tree, Viarta, places that their family took them, and not opportunities that they've never seen. I was one day a number of years ago, took an individual for a pre-placement visit over to a facility in Ventura. This individual had never seen the beach and asked if we could stop because that was not part of their repertoire. So giving people the exposure, experience, and opportunities really make a difference in terms of being able to make choices about people's lives. Uh, Everyone has rights. This will be offered on May 14th. Recently, this was a course that I took, and it's really interesting how when you provide people with their rights, you see a significant decrease in behavioral challenges. Getting back to the whole idea that behaviors, in quotes, behaviors, are either trying to get something or to get away from something. And to the extent that you're really helping people get what they want in life, then the chances of them having challenges within your program or within your home tend to decrease. Um, May 30th and September 19th, Community Building Connections. And this is a class that really talks about how do you build communities for folks. And some of you may have heard my story before where I had a individual move into a residential facility and the provider said, well, everyone in our facility goes to this particular church on Sunday mornings. And the individual who was moving into the facility said, that's not my faith. That's not where I want to go. So we worked with a local pastor from that individual's particular denomination that they felt comfortable with, and found a member of that congregation that was willing to come up, pick up the client or individual, take them to the service, uh, and afterwards they participated participated in the social hour at the church, and over a period of time became part of that community. that was related to individuals of that faith. So really want to talking about how we can build communities for people. Many of our adult individuals, the only adults they're with all day long, other than other individuals who are also receiving services, are people who are paid to be with them. And we really want to try to encourage opportunities to be in the community and involved in activities of their choice. Then on the June 13th, embracing the dignity of risk. Historically, our system has really encouraged us to be risk averse, to try to prevent uh, things to happen. I mean, the whole idea of having to fill out a special incident in the past meant, what did you do wrong? What happened that shouldn't have happened? And we really want to look at how do we balance client choice and potential for risk. I mean, this morning, if you drove into your program, you took a significant risk just driving from your home to your office. And that's one of the things that we really want to look for our clients, so that if an individual wants to use the Get Bus system, using the three E's of teaching them, the how to go about that and the risks that are involved. Where do we go from there? And how do you document that you did all these things of truly providing that individual with the necessary training and opportunities and exposure, so that they can indeed do what they want, even though there may be some challenges to doing that community activities. And then finally, person-centered thinking. Now, Kern Regional Center through Shannon Luke and John Noriega offers a 5-day course specific to person-centered planning and thinking. This is not that. This is just an intro to person-centered thinking, and it's really a very helpful way to philosophically think about involving the client in participating in their own services. I remember years ago being at a individual plan meeting, an IPP, where the staff and the regional center staff and the program staff, and I think the parents were involved too, were all talking about the individual in third person. Was doing this, and talking about some fairly intimate, so well, they when they would have a bowel movement, they didn't fully wipe themselves, and they're talking about this in front of the individual and never talking to him, talking to each other, writing down on their paper, doing the documentation, but really not involving the individual themselves, and primarily talking about the individual's deficits. And that's what we really are moving away from. We're trying to think about what's important to and for that individual, and how do we go there? What do we need to do to accomplish that? So that will be again on June 25th. If you receive the newsletter that's put out by Bakersfield ARC, all the times and dates, and it's just a much bigger description than what I just gave you is in there for each and all of those courses. If you're not receiving the newsletter, Valerie had recently just put her email address in the chat. Go ahead and send her a email saying, please put me on the newsletter. Newsletter comes out usually the first or second week of every month. One just came out for March last week. And there's a number of items in there. So not only does it cover events that month, so for those of you who may not be aware, March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. And so it gives a little bit of information about that. It gives you a link to the governor's proclamation, some other things. Women's History Month this month. Cerebral palsy is Awareness Month, etc. There's also usually an article specific to what's going on with HCBS waiver. And this month I gave two interesting websites specific to community. And then there are updates. So that we talk about what's going on in the system. I put in there a number of free classes that are available from resources throughout the country that I find in my research. And so it's a good reading, I believe, but then I'm the author. So, but I would encourage you to look into that if you're not receiving it of yet. And signing up for that means you'll also get maybe one or two blasts a month talking about potential training opportunities, but it won't fill your email in basket. So we're very careful about not overdoing it because we know how busy you are during the day and we don't want to create extra work for you. So now we're on to today's topic. So we're going to be talking about advocacy. And advocacy on an individual or systems level is acting with or on behalf of an individual or group to resolve an issue. So if at some point you've gone to Kern Regional Center, you've gone to your local assemblyman or state senator's office to talk about an issue, that was advocacy. But advocacy is also when you're sitting in that IPP meeting and an issue comes up, or you're at the doctor's office with that individual, or dentist's office, or someplace, and there's some issues related to what's best care for that individual. And sometimes, unfortunately, we've seen situations where professionals may be somewhat dismissive of our individuals. And so we want to really advocate both for ourselves in terms of system-wide and also to advocate for the individuals that we serve. So we want to help the people get the services and supports they need. And that can be done, like I said, on system level, individual level. Promote a change in practices, policies, or behaviors of a third party. So what if we want to make a change in how it's done? For example, coming up on the 20th of this month, the regional center is having their annual disparity information public meeting in which they're going to talk about purchase of services and how that is impacted by individuals' race, ethnic background, languages, etc., and what plans that they're implementing to try to equalize the services to all individuals. So if you have opinions about things that possibly the center could do better, or things that you feel that are impeding individuals from receiving their services, it's a good time to come and practice advocacy. Advocacy is essential for promoting and protecting the civil and human rights of people with intellectual and or developmental disabilities, and for establishing and maintaining and improving the quality of their life. So if what we're talking about with home and community-based waiver is improving people's quality of life, one of the ways we go about doing that, we do things like protecting individuals' privacy and dignity, and supporting people to better understand and utilize the community. But also, one of the things that we also do is to try to maintain and improve their quality of life through talking with others who are involved in the system to try to make things better for individuals. And this was these definitions, and the next couple slides are from the National ARC, an organization that is a parent organization of the Bakersfield ARC. And if you go to their website, there's a abundance of information on all kinds of different issues. And they keep a very strong advocacy role in both federal legislation and state legislation. So when the home and community-based waiver regulations were being developed and are now being interpreted by states and by the federal government after they were developed, the ARC is at the table, and they look to their chapter members and to individuals for input on how they should present that. So you can be actively involved in that. Oops, let me go back. Okay. Strong advocacy. Without strong advocacy at all levels, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities may not have access to needed supports as well as opportunity to exercise inherent civil and human rights. California has a strong system of advocacy for individuals and has since the 1960s. Um, California is the only state that offers an entitlement, which means anybody who walks in the door of Kern Regional Center and after an evaluation as to their eligibility is found to be eligible for services, they receive an IPP and a full array of services consistent with law, regulations, and purchase of service policies. So anyone gets services. Anybody want to guess how many people are on the waiting list nationwide? And if you read my last newsletter, it had it in there. Currently, there are 700,000 individuals who have developmental disabilities who, when they went to their state agency, not California, but other states, and asked for services, they were saying, oh, we're capped. We have so many slots, they're all filled. We'll put you on the waiting list. And when a slot opens up, and in many cases that's 5 years plus, you can have services. I heard one time someone say that if you want to place your adult individual into a residential setting in New York, you should, when they're a small child, put them on the waiting list so that by the time they reach adulthood, that's when the a vacancy will become available. So in those states that have a cap, either somebody has to move out, close their case, or pass away, and then the next person on the list goes in. The 3/4 of those folks on the waiting list are in the state of Texas. Florida also has a number of people. Illinois is another state that has a large waiting list. And in many of those states, what you have is you have to be on Medicaid waiver and in the home and community-based waiver program in order to receive services. California, you can be on the waiver and receive services. You can receive services if you're not on the waiver. So there is a big difference in terms of how states provide services to individuals. Additionally, strong advocacy may be required to prevent and address abuse, neglect, exploitation that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities may experience. So you may see a situation where somebody is taking advantage of an individual or isn't providing them with the services that are needed. Years ago, just on a small scale, but still, there was a group home that was just down the street from a little corner market. And when the clients got their personal and incidental funds and went over to the market to buy items for those individuals who really didn't have a good understanding of denominations, money understanding, different amounts of money. They might give that clerk, $5 for a $2 item and get 30 cents back. And so when we discovered that, we went into the store, talked to the owner, and said, "Hey, wait, you got somebody working for you who is exploiting these individuals." And that owner respectfully took care of the issue, and and it got dealt with. So that's advocacy on the small scale. And then there are larger scale issues. For example, right now, there is the, the state of California is projecting about, depending on whose numbers you use, anywhere from 30 to 60 to 70 billion-dollar deficit coming up in this year, next year, and then in the following years. So next 3 years, there's a projection of a pretty wide deficit. California was $100 billion in the black last year, but the shift of the number of factors has changed the economy very rapidly. The rate increases that you were receiving as a provider to bring rates back up to where they really need to be included an acceleration of the final year's monies to July 1 of 2024. It was originally in the initial legislation was July 1 of 2025. Well, the governor, in order to save approximately $1 billion, has decided that, well, no, we'll go back to 2025. So that means that no raise for providers for at least another year. Now, there was a hearing in the assembly a couple of weeks ago, and a number of providers and organizations came and really talked about how detrimental this would be both to the providers themselves and to the services that they provide for the individuals within their facilities. The committee voted unanimously to keep it in the budget. So now there's going to be a negotiation between the legislature and the governor's office, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But through strong advocacy, groups have made the legislature aware of the effect that delaying this increase to providers would have on the services and supports that they provide, plus your livelihoods and the ability to keep your program up and running, the ability to continue to take referrals, etc. So it's an important topic that needs to be discussed, and by bringing it to people's attention, it hopefully we will see some positive resolution on this issue. Persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities may need supportive advocates to become effective self-advocates. Now, self-advocacy is to teach the individuals we serve how to advocate for themselves. If any of you have ever been online or in person gone to a regional center board meeting, you will notice that almost half of their board are individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. Idea being that who better can really share the needs, wants, desires of individuals than the individuals themselves. So teaching people how to advocate for themselves, how to speak up, when something is happening that they don't like, they think that's injustices, something they would like to see that isn't happening for them. It is really a strong movement within the field at the moment. It was self-advocacy played a big role in having social and recreational services put back into the budget a couple of years ago, because people were sitting there saying, no, look at the effect that this has on individuals. And it really helped push that. I know here locally, the Kern Regional Center Client Advisory Group really pushed local legislators towards restoring social and recreational services to the budget. And again, this was from these 3 bullet points are from the ARCA position statement of 2015. Okay, so let's talk about systems advocacy, the advocacy that you can do with the broader picture. So a minute ago, where I talked about the rate increases, that are somewhat in jeopardy and could of being pushed back a year, so that freezing your rates. And I know most of you could attest to the fact that costs are not going down. So by delaying this, it makes it that much more of a challenge to keep your facility, your residential setting up and afloat. And nationwide, this is a critical problem. In California, we're seeing this as well. So even though California says we have no waiting list, so anybody can get in the door, in essence, there are waiting lists, because I know just for the program that I used to work for and now consult with, there is a waiting list to get into some of their employment services, so that young adults who are coming out of the secondary education, high schools, and are saying, no, we don't want to go to traditional day services. We'd rather go to uh, employment related services, are having a challenging time getting into programs that provide for those, pre-employment, trainings and actual supported and community integrated employment settings, because there just isn't the funding, the staffing, et cetera, available. So that's a systems issue. The goal of systems advocacy is to enhance public awareness. So we want the public to know of the rights, strengths, needs, and interests of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and influence law and policies to improve public and private systems to support uh, and services. So many of you have probably met with your legislators in the past, both local, assembly, state, maybe, until very recently, we had a congressman who was the Speaker of the House and was very influential in setting the direction of legislation. And we at Bakersfield ARC we're constantly in contact with his office folks, and when possible with him, to really encourage uh, budgetary and programmatic issues that were specifically related to developmental disability. And when you're advocating, like in the community, taking individuals out as part of your the services and supports consistent with the individual's plan is advocacy in the community. So community exposure, to the extent that people see that the individuals we serve have the same rights and abilities and opportunities that everyone else has, is a form of advocacy. So we want to continue to have our individuals in the community. Having our individuals working is a big one as well. So that the more we can get persons with development into the employment, so that and varied employment, so that all kinds of different things. A number of years ago, there was a study where they looked at people's perception of individuals with Down syndrome. And when asked about employment, they said, "Oh yeah, they can be a courtesy clerk at a grocery store." Well, that's true, but that's limiting them. And why not some other opportunity? Why not maybe a file clerk in an office building, or the individual who takes your ticket at a movie theater, or some other opportunity for that individual? So we want to advocate for across the board for individuals. Service providers, and I misspelled there, and self-advocates should play a meaningful role in system change. So we should all be about trying to make things better. Agencies providing services to individuals should also advocate for system change that will improve the quality of life for all individuals, whether supported by an agency or not. So whether they belong in a service like a day activity, adult day activity, or they're not, they're just at home, we still want to advocate. It's not like we're just advocating for the people that we serve. We want to advocate for all individuals within our system. Because by advocating, let's say, for example, for rates, and even though we may be thinking about our own rate, we are also looking at the big picture in some ways, because we're also talking about your rate and the other provider's rate. And so we're all in this together, and to make sure that we receive equity and a fair compensation for the work that we do is important. Um, just give you an example. I mentioned a few minutes ago about the rate study and how the implementation of that study was originally fast tracked so that the money would come in July of 2024, and now the governor's pushing it back to the original date, which was 2025. And what's going to happen with that through the legislative process, and how you can be involved and let your legislator know that no, we need this money come this July and not next year, is an important thing that you can do to both help yourself, your other providers, and ultimately the people that we serve, because the more ability that you can have financial resources to support your program, the better job you can do for the individuals that you serve. Now, here's two pieces of legislation that are moving through our California legislation as we speak. The legislature came into session in the first part of January of this year for the current legislative session. And by the end of the month, any bill that you wanted to propose had to be, you had to send it in, get it certified and on the docket. So here are two bills that are moving through the system right now. The first one, AB 1914, and AB stands for Assembly Bill. You also see SB, which stands for Senate Bill. So that's where the bill originates. So if it's a Assembly Bill, it's got an AB number. If it's a Senate Bill, it's got an SB number. So this is Assembly Bill 1914. And this provides for a certification program for direct service professionals. This bill would require the Chancellor of the California Community Colleges Office to develop a model curriculum for a certification program for providers of care for individuals with developmental disabilities, designated to offer at the community college campus where sufficient student interest and properly qualified faculty sustain such a program. So this would allow for local community colleges to develop programs specifically to train for direct service professionals. Now, as we really work as a system to try to professionalize our direct support staff, this would go a long way in doing that. This would allow certifications through a community college for the work that they do. So that's one bill that if you're at all interested, like I said, you might want to contact your local assemblyman or senator. If you go to assembly.ca.gov, you get a list of all the people who are in our California Assembly. You can type in your address and it'll let you know who represents you specifically. So if you're not sure who your representative is, and hopefully you do know, because last week was an election, and if you did go out and vote, you know who's currently providing that services, and you made a choice about who you'd like to see provide those services come next year in the new legislative session. The next bill that is out there that I wanted to share with you, and there are a number of bills, these are just two examples of bills that are out there, is AB 2510. And again, it's an assembly bill, and this is about dental care for persons with developmental disabilities. And this bill would require the State Department of Developmental Services to contract with the California North State University no later than, and it's not, that part hasn't been filled in yet by the legislature, to establish a statewide program centered in the state's regional centers to improve the provision of dental care services to people with developmental and intellectual disabilities, and specifically to prevent or reduce the need for developmental services consumers to receive dental treatment using sedation or general anesthesia. So for those of you who have taken the individuals you serve to dentists, you know that at times this can be very challenging, and that unfortunately our individuals have much worse dental outcomes than most other individuals. I mean, it goes back to the whole area of how well people are maintaining their dental hygiene, to the fact that when they do go to the dentist, that dentist looking at what's restorative or what they believe to be necessary to take care of that individual's dental needs. And I don't want to second guess any dental professional, but there's some literature out there to show that sometimes the outcomes for individuals with developmental disabilities isn't the same as it is for the general population when it comes to dentistry. In addition, we have individuals who are tactilely sensitive to and do not want anything in their mouth or to be touched. And those individuals sometimes need to have sedation or general anesthesia for what could be, in some cases, routine dental procedures. So developing ways of helping individuals so that they don't need that, because anytime you go under sedation, there is a certain amount of risk, would be very helpful. So this is another piece of legislation that's moving through right now that if you're interested in advocacy, you might want to contact your local assemblyman or state senators and say, hey, listen, I really support Assembly Bill 2510. Now, if you want more information about these two bills or other bills, there are a number of different places that you can look. So if you are interested in advocacy, the as I mentioned before, the ARC. If you go to ARC California, there is a legislative page. Uh, the Association of Regional Centers, also known as ARCA, ARCA, and it's arcanet.com, has a website that has legislation, and they also have oftentimes take a position of support if amended, so that they like the bill in concept, but there are things they would like changed in that particular piece of legislation, or just oppose. And so if you want to, and if you just Google AB 1914, it will come, California, AB 1914, it will come up with a bill. And you can see the bill and read it if you'd like and see if it's something you can support. Or if, like I say, if you think that, yeah, this is a good bill, but I'd like to see this in there because I don't think what they've got right now is totally practical, you can contact your local individual and let them know. Self-advocacy and leadership, people with the intellectual or developmental disabilities have the right to advocate and to be supported to act as self-advocates. So we want the individuals that we serve to speak up for themselves and to know that it's okay to do that. Recently, I heard of an individual who shared with I think, a parent about a incident at their facility. That individual, the parent, then contacted the facility, said, hey, listen, this is what my family member shared with me. The next thing you know, the individual is telling their parents, I got into trouble. The staff told me don't be telling your parent that. And it sounded to me, when I heard the story, like there was action taken against the individual for speaking up. And that's clearly not the case. Individuals have a right to make their voices known. Now, could be that the facility investigated the situation and found that it wasn't true, and maybe sat down with that individual and talked to them about, wait a minute, you want to be truthful when you're sharing information, but that's not the way I was told that it happened. So again, third hand information, but an example of when you're teaching advocacy, people have a right to advocate for themselves and to be assured that there's going to be no repercussions for any advocacy attempt or that they make on their behalf or the behalf of other individuals within their program. Self-advocates exercise their rights as citizens by communicating for and representing themselves and others with whatever support they need. Okay. And self-advocates must have a meaningful role in decision-making in areas of their daily lives and public policy decisions that affect people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we want to have people be involved in their own life. Now, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we just had an election last week. How many of you assisted the residents in your program, the people who attend your day services, to understand and exercise their right to vote? So, are the individuals who you serve A, registered to vote, and B, if they are, have they been given the information? Have you sat down with them and shared the packet that comes in the mail that explains the different propositions, that talks about the people who are running for the office's position on different things? How do, when asked by advocacy groups, uh, do you support developmental disability issues? What did that person respond with? So is this somebody that you want to support when you're voting on because they took a strong stance in favor or in opposition of a particular disability related issue that's important to the individuals that we serve? So that's self advocacy. Locally, there is through the Kern Regional Center, Roy Rocha has been doing it for a number of years. A client's rights individual who's a self-advocacy individual, excuse me, not client rights. And there is a committee. I know it was somewhat dormant during COVID, the height of COVID. Now that it's much less of a challenge on a daily basis. The committee is now meeting again, and every program for adult day services and vocational, and I believe some residential programs are involved as well, can send a representative to the meetings, and the meetings are there to discuss issues that are of importance to the individuals that we serve, and they can voice their opinion, and those then get relayed back to the administration of the regional center and to the board of directors of the regional center, so that their input is important. Um, when you're talking about advocacy, what are we talking about? I've mentioned this morning about political advocacy, advocating for individuals on a political issues like certification for DSPs, service issues like the dental issue. That would be in other services for the individuals we serve, that they could get better dental care to meet their dental care needs, and then also funding, which we talked about earlier, and the current challenges to the rates study legislation, and whether that will be implemented in July of this year or July of next year. So those are types of advocacy that you can really look towards. Um, Challenges to advocacy. So what makes advocacy sometimes a little bit difficult? Uh, People with intellectual and developmental disabilities and service provider need resources which will educate and empower them to bring about change. If you're going to do advocacy, you want to know basically what you're talking about. So it's important to get the resources so that when you go to meet with whomever, maybe it's the director of the regional center, maybe it's the county supervisors, although county has very little to do specifically with intellectual disabilities, or state. Know the issue. have some understanding. For a number of years, when I was at the regional center and worked there, we had a grassroots day every year where we go up to Sacramento and we would talk with our local legislators about the issues that were important to the people that we serve and to the regional center to be able to operate and to provide the services that they did. And what would happen was our statewide organization would come up with 3 or 4 talking points. So when we went in to see an individual, the meeting was brief because that's usually what they are. They're not going to, they don't, they're very busy also, and they have a number of constituents who want to talk to them. And we said, okay, we want to talk to you about this, and we talk about those 3 or 4 issues, and that would be our meeting. People with developmental disabilities, service providers need to have backing to successfully navigate services systems. So we need to watch each other's backs. There are organizations out there that specifically are advocating, and you may belong to an organization that is part of a larger organization. So in California, if any of you are interested, there is what's called the Lanterman Coalition. Frank Lanterman was the individual who passed or was instrumental in getting the legislation passed to create the regional center system. And so the laws that are related to regional centers are called the Lanterman Act. A group of individuals in honor of Frank Lanterman have come together and developed a coalition. So there are like United Cerebral Palsy, ARC, a number of other organizations throughout the state of California, individual large vendors, the Social Work Union, a number of groups have developed an advocacy organization, and they have a position paper right now on what the system needs for this year. So I have put a link to that in my last newsletter, but you can also go to their website and look at what are some of the system-wide issues and how we can back each other on that. Advocates who need support should be able to get the support they need, including education and assistance. So the people you're working with, if they say, hey, I don't like this, I'd like to see something different. I don't think it's fair that we get treated somewhat differently than other people, or I think that, we need more money in the system, or, my SSI is just not enough to live off of. And how do I go about trying to change that? Recently, I know that but Congressman Valadeo was at Kern Regional Center one day promoting a piece of legislation he's sponsoring right now to end the marriage penalty, where so if 2 individuals with disabilities get married, they don't get the same amount of money as 2 individuals would get. When they marry, they get less, and that's considered to be a penalty. And so, we want to make sure that we're helping the clients we serve with the support they need if they do want to advocate on an issue. Advocates should not be retaliated against for their advocacy, and I addressed that a little bit earlier. We want to make sure that we're respectful of the individuals we serve. Some of the things on a political basis, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Rehab Act, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and the Lanterman Act all talk about advocacy and how we go about, and these are things that really do protect the rights of individuals. Now, I have a few more slides, but it's getting close to the end of the hour, so I'll do one more slide, and then I'll open it up if anybody has any questions or would like to share anything with the group. So what are some of the areas that you can advocate in? One is healthcare, making sure that people receive good health care. If you look at the statistics and some of the research, people with disability oftentimes do not get the same level of health care, and the outcomes for life expectancy and type of care are not as good as they are for the general population. So, advocating to make sure that your female clients are receiving good women's health care and are getting the screenings that they need at appropriate ages. For men's health care, same sort of thing, so that people are getting those screenings. So there is important. Employment and education. California is an employment first state, and so we really want to make sure that people are getting opportunities to work if they so choose, or that they're getting educational opportunities. Secondary, I mean, post-secondary education, going to college is becoming an option now for individuals with developmental and intellectual needs. Getting the services and supports that they want and need. Housing assistance. We live in a part of the state which has got lower housing costs, but still trying to, for those clients, let's say, who are on supported living services and are living in their own apartment, or clients who want to move out on their own or move out with a roommate, housing, even in Kern County and environments, is tough. And Social Security benefits, there is a cost of living that goes in every year, but really hasn't seen a substantial raise in a number of years. The amount that people can have in savings, the $2,000 limit, has been in the law since the early 70s. And clearly, $2,000 in the early 70s is not what $2,000 is today. The community services. So we want to advocate. So one time I was working with a group of clients and we took them to the senior center. And after a couple times of taking them to the senior center, the center shared, "Oh, we're not. We're here for seniors. We're not here for your clients." And we made it really clear that our clients were just as eligible to use that service as anyone else using that service. And finally, benefits. Now, at this point, I'd like to open it up to questions. Do any of you have any questions specifically related to today's presentation and would like to share your ideas or concerns? Just go ahead and open up your mic if you'd like to speak. Um, Again, going once, going twice. Again, I strongly encourage you to think about how you go about advocating both for the individuals you serve, for the program that you're operating, and doing it in a way that improves the quality of life for the individuals you serve. And with that, I thank you all today. Again, make sure you submit your three concepts that you learned today to Irene at the Bakersfield ARC if you want the continuing education credit. Next week, this will be repeated with a little bit greater emphasis on residential facilities. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be doing a webinar, which will be an hour and a half long, that is specific to the IPPs. Last month, I did one on IPPs, and after an hour, somehow technical difficulties cut me off. So I'm going to continue with where I was last month and also add some additional information about individual program planning. So looking forward to seeing you in the future. And again, I strongly encourage you to get involved with the CQL courses that are the nationally accredited services. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Jeff.